Today, I want to talk to y'all about fall red fishing. Being early October, probably second or third as of right now, we're just starting to fire off into our fall season. I think we got our first big cold front approaching us this week. And I want to give y'all a couple main key components that allow us to catch more redfish, speckled trout, snook, and any other inshore species you're looking to catch during this fall season. All right, let's talk about where these fish are going to be. Okay, first is locating them. So come early fall, when you're first getting in the season, these fish are going to show up on the edges. Okay, they're going to move from the Gulf of Mexico into the interior marshes following the bait. So in your early season, you're going to want to fish the edges of the Gulf of Mexico more. It's going to be more school fish. They're going to show up in these numbers down there. And as the fall goes on and these water temperatures drop and the days get shorter, that plays a big role in what these fish do. They have sensitive retinas, these redfish, these speckled trout, and as the days get shorter into wintertime, it triggers them to move on the inside. It's not all a water temperature thing. So as you're fishing the edges early in the season, when you get towards middle fall season, you start getting the water temps to cool off and the days getting shorter, those fish are going to move onto the inside. Those schools are going to move into the marsh, and then they're going to kind of break up. Okay, they're going to break up into different, let's say they come in schools of a couple hundred, they're going to break up into 20s and 10s and things like that and be those smaller schools. Okay, so early season, work the edges of the Gulf of Mexico, and as you get further closer, I say Gulf of Mexico, but even the oceans, as you get further and further into the season, those fish are going to move in. By late fall season, all the fish that are going to be in the marsh will be in the marsh. Okay, that is going to be where you're going to target every species in one area. So now let's talk about what to use. Okay, what kind of bait are we going to use to target these inshore fish in the fall months? Early in the season, you're going to have a lot of live bait around, okay, in the water. So these fish are going to be a lot more picky on what they get to eat. So my suggestion is to always have live bait with you, okay? Not saying you can't throw lures. Early morning be a great time to throw some lures, big profile lures, stuff like that to get these big fish to bite. But majority of early season, while your water temperatures are up and you have a ton of bait around, is going to be to throw bait. They like to match it. When they're picky, they want the live bait. As you get later in the season and as the water temperatures get cooler and more cold fronts we get, these fish are gonna get less picky on what they eat. That's gonna open up the opportunities to throw lures at them. And at a certain point, you actually can throw just straight lures or even dead bait and stuff like that. In the dead of winter, you can get into, and we'll talk winter when winter season comes, but you can get into just throwing shrimp at them, dead shrimp. They'll eat a lot more frequently lower quality bait than what they would, say, in the summer or early fall or spring. So early in the season, make sure you have live bait with you. Try and throw your lures. Look for those peak times of tides and stuff like that to throw the lures when they're real active. And then as you get later in the season, you're going to be able to turn over to more and more artificials because it's going to get harder for us to get bait when we get to that time of the year. All right, let's now talk about when. When is the best time to catch redfish, big slots, anything, even rat reds? When is the best time to catch fish in the fall time? So it goes to the same theory as we did on the bait. Early season, that first light morning bite and that evening bite are always going to be your best. And they actually have a little percentage above most times of the year until we get into winter time. So early morning, late evening, that first 2-3 hours of light, that last 2-3 hours of light are going to be your best times come early fall. Now, once we get into some heavy cold fronts, say into November and stuff like that, we start really dropping some water temperatures and these fish start to get a little stressed out on these cold fronts, then the best time to be the fish is going to be between 10 and 2. And when I say that is it's because the water temperature rises up 2-3 degrees, okay? And those fish are going to go lay up on oyster shells or up on the flats or just get more active. They're just going to get more active because that water temperature rises 1 or 2 degrees. It's going to trigger their metabolisms and them to feed. So they're going to go into a feeding mode when that sun is the highest on those really cold days. So 10 a.m. or so, we don't go out till 8:30, 9 o'clock because we know the first hour or two aren't going to be that good of a bite, but we want to be there when they start biting, not after they start biting. And then usually 2-3 o'clock, they'll start really shutting down as that sun hits the horizon on the side. Because you got to remember, once we get into true, fall, We're going to get dark around 6 p.m. So that last 2-3 hours won't be so good. So it's basically an opposite approach. Early season, early morning, late afternoon. Once we get into some true cold weather and more of a wintertime type of pattern in the fall, then it's going to be the middle of the day, that opposite time. So hopefully that helps y'all catch more redfish. And we're going to get on to one more subject that I think is the most important subject there is. All right, let's talk one more important subject, probably the most important subject that changes us from summertime fishing to fall fishing. Cold fronts. Cold fronts become very important on how we fish in the fall. So let's start with what happens with cold fronts early in the season. These fish have not seen a cold front, besides a very, very rare one, since the spring. Okay, the whole summer months, they have not seen a cold front. Once they get that cold front, when that pressure drops on them, the first 2 or 3 fronts, it is going to take them a couple of days, and we're talking redfish here, strictly redfish. It is going to take them a couple days to reacclimate back to what they did. It's the first time that pressure has hit them, and it's just a little slower for them to recover. Once we get into a pattern where we start getting a cold front every week or 2, or every 4 or 5 days, where it gets real patterny, then these fish will recover in 4 to 6, 8 hours. They'll start going back to their patterns. They know what this feels like. They know what to do. They make their adjustments. But when they first get hit with one, they're a little slower to react. And it goes the same way with late season fronts when we get to the other times of the years. So cold fronts are going to make these fish react. What happens to them? Okay, first thing, before a cold front, you're going to get what they call a low pressure system. Okay, pressure is going to drop, barometer pressure is going to drop, and it's going to trigger these fish to feed. This is a natural occurrence that these fish will do. It is survival mode for them. So before the front, they're going to drop pressure, going to turn them on, and they're going to go nuts. You throw a bait within 10 feet of these fish, they're coming to eat it. They're going to find what you have, noise, anything, they're coming to come check it out and eat. Then that front's going to come through. And a lot of times people think that you can't catch them in the front, and actually it's some of the best fishing when it gets blowing 20, because these fish are active and they don't know we're there. So it's a lot easier to get on them. So you can fish them all the way through the 20-mile-an-hour winds, the dirty water, you just throw bait on instead of a lure, and these fish are going to continue to eat. Once that front passes, and we get what they call bluebird skies, and it's what they call a high pressure, so you got the front comes through as a low, and then a high pressure moves in behind it, and you see these bright blue skies, not a cloud in the sky, that's when these fish go sit. Okay, they're literally going to gulge themselves on food and then go sit on a flat with that stuff in their stomach for a day or 2 a lot of times in the early season. They get better as time goes on, but they're going to sit and hold it. And until they drop it, they have food. They're not going to move around. It's a survival instinct to sit up and just hang out. Now, one thing you can do when a high pressure sets in, which we like to do a lot of, is sight fish. Okay, you get a super high pressure, which usually means low winds. High pressure is going to bring the winds down, and it's going to make bluebird skies without a cloud in the sky. Great time to sight fish redfish. They're going to be laid up on flats and stuff like that, just laid up sitting. You're going to get your shot at them. Now, they're not going to eat as well, but if you find 5 or 10 of them sitting up, one's going to pick it up just to compete with the other ones. So that's a great thing to turn to after a cold front. You know, we don't all get to pick days to fish. So if the day you get to fish happens to be after a cold front, don't try and call those fish to you. They're not coming. They're going to sit up. Unless you throw on a top of a pile of them, they're not eating. You got singles and doubles, they're going to look at it and just sit right there. The best thing you can do is throw an ice chest on the front deck, get up, throw your trolling motor down, and start sight fishing on those kind of days. So low pressure fish feed really well. High pressure, they sit and don't eat as well. Okay, and you're going to get into this pattern over and over. So if you can pick your days, great. But if you can't, you got to know what these fish are doing in order to know how to approach them and how to catch them. We catch them on both. Don't get me wrong. When that high pressure sets in after a front, a lot of times it's one here, one there, and we do what we call grind. We grind fish. By the end of the day, it looks like you caught a bunch of fish. You caught 5, 10, 15 fish, but they were all one here, one there, or 10 spots with nothing. And one spot we found 10 of them sitting there and got 2 or 3 to eat. That's just how it's going to go. And if you know that, you won't run and gun looking for fish like we would, say, a low pressure. When the front's coming, hey, if we don't get a bite pretty quick, we're moving on to the next spot because we know these fish are eating right now. And no matter where we go, if there's fish there, they're going to bite. And that's just how these redfish work. They have a lateral line that's sensitive, and their living habits come off of instinct, number one. And that is their instinct. to feed before front and sit after front when that water temperature starts dropping. So the other thing you're going to find with cold fronts is a lot of times that clear bluebird sky day, the next day is probably the hardest day to get them to eat because they're going to shut down. These fish are going to truly, truly shut down. That water temp drops dramatically. It takes them a day or two to adjust, and then they're going to go back to feeding. So hopefully this helps y'all catch more redfish this fall. Looking forward to seeing y'all out there. Any questions or comments, put it in the link below, and like and subscribe to the channel for us.